Welcome to another special episode of Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. This is a special unboxing episode. We're going to look at the new Wave 7 Mego monsters. I have this box direct from, I think it's the Big Bad Toy Store. I believe that's the name. So I have not opened this yet. And if it's like other Mego boxes I've received, there's probably a smaller box inside this big box. So let's open this up. And this will be the last of our special summer episodes. The next time you see me, it will be the start of the regular second season. So this is a special episode, an unboxing episode. I didn't want to start the second season with an unboxing episode. So this is one more special, summer special. And then after this, in a couple weeks or so, we'll have the new second season of Basement of Horror. And you can see that it's kind of sparse back here. My bookcase is gone. There's some weird things kind of sticking into the frame. I don't know if you can see it or not. So there's some funny stuff going on. So next time you see me, there'll be some different things. I don't know exactly what it's all going to look like because it's all over there, waiting to be set up. So we'll see. It'll kind of come together as I do it. I've got new stuff over there that's going to create a new environment. So when you see me again, you will see a slightly different looking set. Still the basement, still in the basement with the wood panel walls, but it'll look a little different. Okay, let's see here. Let's open this box of Wave 7 Mego monsters. See what's in here. I hope the Mego monsters are in here. I mean, I don't know. It could be a raccoon. You never know. Those raccoons get into places you never expect. I could open this box up, and there could be a raccoon. Pops it up and says, "Hi, what's up?" And I'd say, "Hello, Mr. Raccoon. How'd you get in there?" And he was like, "Oh, I was just chilling and wanted to see what was in the box." And oh, so there's not a box within a box. We're going to get right to the figures. All right. We got some lovely bubble wrap. Some paperwork. I don't want to bend up these figures getting out of here. Okay, here we go. So, the first one is It. Pennywise from It. Ah! So this is the first time I'm seeing the figure. Well, he's cute, all right. Okay, let's take a look at him. And here's the back of the card. This is the first time I'm seeing one of these in person. Of course, I've seen pictures online, lots of photographs in the months leading up to this. So my impression of Pennywise is he's much more serious looking than some of the other monster figures that Mego has put out. It's interesting when they do an official likeness of the monsters, like Bela Lugosi, Dracula, or Freddy Krueger. they seem to step up their game quite a bit. The generic monsters, I don't think they're bringing their A game to the generic monsters. Some of them are cute, but if they're not licensed, I feel like they kind of slack off a little bit. Mego kind of slacks off a little bit. But with the licensed monsters, they do a better job with the sculpts, and the costumes seem to be more detailed. I think when you're dealing with a licensed owner and you have to get their approval, you have to step it up a little bit. You can't do a generic job and hope to get a studio's stamp of approval. So I've noticed that the licensed characters seem to be on a little bit higher level than the generic ones. Well, Pennywise looks fun. He looks cute and scary. I like his sleeves. They have a nice texture. Those multicolored sleeves. He's got the kind of sparkly shoulder pads. I like his balloon, which it's not like a plastic balloon on a string or something. It's got a plastic, I don't know if it's supposed to be a string or a rod, but it's plastic, so the balloon, when he's holding it, stays up in the air. He's got nice Mego style white hands. Reminds me of the Joker and the Penguin and other characters from the original Mego line. I like his scary face and the color around his mouth and his yellow teeth and his Ronald McDonald hair. And it's interesting that it's called It the Movie. And of course there is an It movie out right now. It Part 2, a feature film. And this is based on the TV movie from 30 years ago. This is Tim Curry as Pennywise, not Skarsgård. And I'm glad they went with the classic, original Tim Curry Pennywise. Whatever you think of the new Pennywise, I mean, his performance is excellent. You can't really fault that. But the iconic Pennywise, I think, is still Tim Curry. It probably always will be. Regardless of whether the movie's better or the new one's better, regardless which one's better, the Pennywise itself, this version of Pennywise, I think, is the iconic Pennywise. Tim Curry is to Pennywise what Boris Karloff is to Frankenstein, and Bela Lugosi is to Dracula. Robert Englund is to Freddy Krueger. So there might be, I mean, there obviously already has been another very good Pennywise, and there may be good ones in the future as well, other actors playing the role, but I think Tim Curry is always going to be the iconic one. And it's interesting that they go with this all white card back, and the front is all white. And I haven't seen the promotional art for the TV movie, so I don't know if that's mimicking the promotional art or if there was a poster for the TV movie. I'm sure there was promotional art, and maybe that's the look it went with, was all white like this. I don't know. So this is a very strong figure. I think it's very well done. Is it better than what NECA might have done? I don't think NECA ever made a Pennywise, as far as I know. It's comparable. I think it's comparable to what NECA would have done. Not better or worse, but comparable. But it's a very good Mego horror figure, so it's a win. All right, let's go on to another one. Now here we have the Mummy. There's a new Mego Mummy. here he is. Here's his back. Alright, let's take a look at this. And again, this is the first time I'm laying eyes on this. I've never seen this before. It's kind of hard to do like a review in real time, like seeing it for the very first time. I'm not able to really take it in or consider it or mull it over. I have to just look at it and say, oh, here's what I think. So I'm cheating a little bit in that I am planning on spending a few minutes kind of looking over and cutting that out. So it's not quite so impromptu. But here we have the new redesigned Mego mummy. I say redesigned because Mego already made a mummy back in the 70s. The Horrible Mummy. And that was a great unlicensed mummy for an original interpretation of the character. The Horrible Mummy from the 70s was really good. Mego made a whole series of mad monsters in the 1970s. They made the Dreadful Dracula, the Monster Frankenstein, the Human Wolfman, and the Horrible Mummy. And they were all original, unlicensed designs. And they were all great as examples of the design aesthetic in the 70s. They looked very 70s, and they really reflected the thinking of that time. They were toys of their time, and as such, they were fantastic. I've never liked the Mad Monsters as much as the Ahis or the Lincolns or Tomlins. I've always been partial to those other figures, so I've never been really rah-rah for the Mad Monsters, but they were excellent toys, and they were classic toys. And I think a lot of people figured Mego would just remake the Mummy, the Horrible Mummy from the 70s, or they would make a Lon Chaney Jr. mummy from Face of the Screaming Werewolf. Because in that movie, Lon Chaney Jr. is both a mummy and a werewolf. So they already did the werewolf from that movie. They've already worked with Ron Chaney, descendant of Lon Chaney, who handles the licensing for the Chaney estate. They've already worked with him. They've already done licensing for that film. They've already done 3 werewolves from that movie. Why not do the Mummy? So it was kind of a surprise when Mego came out with this original Mummy design. And I know that this was based on a custom Mego sculpt. And let's see, I can't quite read. I think it's John Farley. And I don't know if that's the original sculptor of this design or if that's the person who redid it for this figure, but this head and this overall design was a custom toy that somebody made, and Mego saw it and liked it and said, we'll license that sculpt for our Mego mummy. So it's called the Egyptian Mummy. It's interesting that they put that Egyptian on there. Why do that? Is it to differentiate it from the Universal Mummy? Because the Universal Mummy is also supposed to be from Egypt. Well, I mean, he's pretty cool. He's wrapped up, instead of having a suit with printed bandages, he's got actual bandages wrapped all over the figure. And I gotta say, as far as bandaged mummy figures go, this might be the best bandaged mummy I've seen in terms of what the bandages look like. These bandages really look good. I mean, this looks like what you want a bandaged mummy to look like. And so it's so much so that I think it's almost a shame it's not the Universal Mummy, because put a Lon Chaney Jr. head on this figure with these bandages, and that would be really nice. The Ahi mummies were bandaged as well, and there have been other bandaged mummy figures. Lincoln was bandaged. I want to say the MC Diamond Select was bandaged. Yeah, it was. It was. So there've been other bandaged mummies, but these bandages look really good. And the way they have like shards of wrappings hanging off, a lot like the Aurora mummy model, when they had all those little bits of bandages hanging off. And of course, the Universal mummy in the movies has strips hanging off. Really nice. And the head. So, I like the head. I don't have anything bad to say about the head. It looks like a really cool mummy head. I can imagine a different head. I can imagine other designs that I probably would like better than this. But as it is, it's perfectly fine. And I like that his eyes, he's got those little black eyes with little beady white pupils. That's really cool. He has a lot of texture in his head. So I mean, it's very nice, and it looks right for the figure. It all goes together. You know, it looks like it should. Would I have preferred to see a Universal or even a Face of the Screaming Werewolf Loncini Jr. mummy instead of this? Yes, I would have preferred that over this. It's not disappointing. It's a good mummy. I think I'd like it even more if the head had gone a little further with some kind of wacky design, like the Lincoln mummy or the Tomlin mummy, or even the original Mego horrible mummy. They all really go in a weird direction with their original take on a mummy. They don't really look like mummies. They look like crazy characters, but that's cool. The Ahai mummy and the Remco mummies all look like movie likenesses to some degree or another. And the MC mummy looks like Boris Karloff movie likeness. So those are great, but for an original mummy, I think I would have preferred something a little wilder, a little weirder. I don't know what. Either something more skeletal, maybe, or something that looked more like in the opposite direction, like an old man with bandages. Something, or a real mummy, like the mummy of Ramses, or something from the Cairo Museum, since it's an Egyptian mummy. So I like it. I like it, but I can imagine a different take that I might have preferred. It's good, but in my imagination, in my own little toy company where I am the emperor, I can imagine something that would have excited me even more. But what's actually here is very nice. And the card, I like this Lincoln style card art. Like, this isn't Lincoln style, but this, having the sarcophagus here open behind the figure, so it's like it's stepping out of it, that's very Lincoln-esque. I like that a lot. And then on the back, it's just got the same artwork of that mummy character reaching out toward you as you look at it. And I don't know if this artwork is something they had commissioned for the card or if it's stock art. I know they used stock art on that glow-in-the-dark disco Dracula from the previous wave, so I imagine they probably used stock art for this one too, but who knows. Okay, so it's another nice figure. It's very good. Let's see what else we got. Okay, here is the Headless Horseman. Aha. Here he is. I noticed right off the bat that his bubble is a little different. He's got an indentation on the bottom, and then it's raised on the upper half of the bubble. And I guess that's to give the pumpkin, the jack-o'-lantern head, more room. Not sure. But there he is on the front, and here is his back. Here's the back of the card. And I see a pattern here where they repeat the art from the front of the card, and while on the front you've got the figure to kind of fill it out on the back, and I saw this with it, and now on this. On the back it looks kind of sparse or unfinished without that figure here to fill it, you know, fill out the space. It looks a little like it needs something there. And who knows if this is commissioned art or stock art. I'm not gonna do a search to find out. It's not a big deal, but I'm sure someone watching will do just that. Now I've seen another video, at least one other video about this character, this figure, and I do believe that the pumpkin head does snap on. It doesn't just sit there. It's got a hole in the bottom, and I can see underneath the costume, it looks like there's something in there. I know that there's a flap in the costume that you open up and you can stick that jack-o'-lantern on, but I would have to open it up to really get a good look at it, and I'm not going to do that. So this character was kind of controversial in the months leading up to this release because a lot of people didn't like the costume. They showed a prototype and the costume seemed unfinished. It just didn't look right. Now I'm looking at the actual toy, and the costume, you know, it looks fine. I'm sure there's many different ways they could have gone with this outfit. Now it looks like the pants are like a kind of leathery material, like an imitation leather, and they're kind of bunched up by the boot. So instead of, I mean, I don't know if I'm looking, is it the boots I'm seeing or is it the fabric of the pants I'm seeing? It's hard to tell. Maybe it's the boots I'm seeing. I don't know. So yeah, maybe it is. I don't. It's hard to tell without taking it out, which I'm not going to do. But it looks like maybe the fabric is like, or the pants is like bunched up on top of the boot instead of the fabric going down into the boot. But I'm not sure about that. Without taking it out, I can't be sure. He's got his sword. He's got his jack-o'-lantern head. I see that his hands are black. I was wondering if that was going to be the case. So it looks like he's got gloves on. That's good. And he's got a black cape with a red lining, kind of like Dracula, only not as big and luxurious as the ones they've made for Dracula. He's got a leather style jacket. I mean, the whole outfit is leather. I mean, not real leather, but it's imitation leather. And I wonder why they went with that look, the leather look. That's interesting. It's different. And the back, I feel like the back is kind of sparse. I wish Mego would invest a little more in the artwork for these cards. This is just a little, that's not enough. That's just too basic. I mean, it looks like clip art, like maybe a stock image service. Do a search for Sleepy Hollow or Headless Horseman, they might have something like this. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's where this came from. So I wish that they would employ some artists to do some really dramatic paintings for the front and back of the card. That'd be nice. The Pennywise has some nice artwork because I'm sure the license owner has that artwork from the promotion for that film. So I'm sure if you get the license, you also have permission to use the artwork. But this is stuff they had to come up. They had to come up with this on their own, and it's kind of basic. The card art is kind of basic, and I've noticed that with a few of these horror releases. Not all of them, but a few of them, the card art looks kind of like something you'd see on a custom toy card. I wish they'd step up their game with the artwork on these cards. If you take the toy out, then I guess you couldn't care less. But if you leave it in the card, you want the card to look nice. And it's just too much like clip art. Like this mummy is just, it's probably stock art. I mean, for all I know, maybe they commissioned this. I don't know, but I doubt it. And I just wish they put a little bit of money into hiring an illustrator to do some painted style artwork, original art. I mean, imagine how dramatic that would look like if it had a painting, original painting for this figure of the Headless Horseman, like throwing his head or something, or on his horse, you know, with the background, all that. That would have been cool. So let's talk about this costume a little bit. If I were in charge of making this figure, if I were the project team leader on this figure, I would have had the costume designer make something a little more Victorian or a little more Gothic. I would have had like a frock coat or a long coat, black fabric instead of this brown leather, and maybe fabric pants instead of leather pants, and then giving him some kind of a shirt underneath, and the coat might have been double-breasted. That would have been cool. Maybe giving him a longer cape. So there, you know, so the costume has been criticized, so I'm addressing that. I think it's a good costume. It's not bad. It's just a matter of taste. There's all kinds of different ways you could have gone with this, and they chose this way. Why they went with this leather style, I don't know, but it looks good. But I think it would have looked as good or better if perhaps they had gone for a little more Gothic or Victorian kind of, 1800s fabric outfit. And I know that the Horseman, I think the character died in the 1700s, I think. So that wouldn't make sense, but does this costume make sense? I don't know. I don't know what an authentic outfit would be for what is he supposed to be? A Hessian warrior? I don't know. In the original story, I'm not sure. That's in the Tim Burton movie, that's what he is, but I have read the original story, but not recently. So the costume, it's a good costume. I like the costume. I can imagine something a little more Gothic, and I think I would have preferred black fabric. I can imagine maybe being a little playful with it, perhaps giving him like an orange shirt or an orange cape lining with the orange pumpkin. That'd be different take. That might have worked. It might have been too silly, I don't know. Or going for a very serious all black Gothic look, that would have been cool too. But they chose this style, and it's good. I mean, it's a nice figure, looks cool. I'm really more concerned with the card art than as far as my criticisms are concerned, I'm a little more critical of the card art than the figure. I think the figure is perfectly fine. I like that he has the removable head. They didn't have to do that. They could have had the pumpkin head just stuck there and not removable, or they could have given him no head, or they could have had the head just sit there and not snap on and off. So I think, or they could have had the knob exposed. Instead, they put like a little flap of fabric to cover it up. So those are all good little details that they added. And he didn't have to give him a sword. They did that. That's cool. So I don't know. He's a good figure. So let's look at the last one. I did not order Freddy again. From what I understand, the Freddy for this wave is the same as the Freddy from the previous wave. So unless I find out otherwise, I have no plans to order another Freddy. So here we have the Phantom of the Opera. And it's interesting how a lot of these characters in this line are packaged with almost doing a salute. They've all, not all of them, but several of them have. Let's see about the mummy here. Yeah, well, the mummy is holding something. Pennywise is holding his balloon. Horseman has got his hand up here as if he's saying, hey, where's my head? Where's my head? And Phantom is kind of saying, oh, I've got a headache. Or he's saluting somebody. So here's Phantom of the Opera. Just imagine him saying, oh, I've got a headache. Or he could be passing a superior officer in the hallway. You know, as they pass in the hall, he could just kind of do that. That could be. I'm not sure. There's his front, and here's his back. So what's cool with this figure, they've got authentic Universal artwork on this. It's not, let me see here. I don't think it's Universal copyrighted. No, it's not. So with Phantom stuff, you can go different ways with the licensing. You can get a Universal Studios license, and other toy companies have done that. But you don't have to, because the film is technically in the public domain. If you want to use Lon Chaney Sr.'s likeness, the actor's likeness, then you've got to go to Ron Chaney, who handles the estate, to get a license to use Lon Chaney Sr.'s likeness. You can get that and not get the Universal likeness. I mean, the Universal license. You don't have to get the Universal license. But if you're doing a series of Universal monsters, like Sideshow and Diamond and other toy companies, then you don't want to play that game. You want to have everyone licensed by Universal. It just kind of comes with a package. You're not going to pick and choose. Although sometimes they'd make the like Aurora and Ahai, the Dracula wasn't Universal licensed. It was either unlicensed in those cases, or in more modern times, it would have a Bela Lugosi Jr. license, but not a Universal license. So the licensing is weird. This one, this Phantom, has a Ron Chaney license, but does not have a Universal license. From what I can see looking at the card, I don't see Universal Studios license. I do see the Chaney Enterprises, which is what Ron Chaney runs. They do have the Chaney Entertainment logo here. So it does have the Chaney Entertainment logo, but not a Universal one. Although the stills, like this on the back is a still, a photo from the movie Phantom of the Opera. And on the front, it looks like this is also the actual photograph. It might be a little bit retouched or painted over, but basically it is the promotional still, very famous one, of the Phantom of the Opera from the movie. So I kind of joke about the hand, but that is a pretty characteristic pose for the Phantom. In the movie, he's often kind of like, oh, woe is me, and making, not exactly that, but his body language is sort of sad in the movie. There's many times where he's kind of like, you know, like shaking his head, or, oh, I'm so sad, I'm so tragic. So that pose, oh, that's that is rather characteristic of the Phantom in the movie. So I can see why they might have done that. And it was a cool pose. So looking at, because it's all black, I can't really tell much about the costume. I mean, it looks nice from what I can see, but it's all like black on black. So yeah, I'm sure it's I'm sure it's fine. I can't really tell. So from what I can see, I mean, it looks pretty decent. If I could examine a loose one, I might have more to say about the costume. So let's talk about the head, this likeness. It's a good Lon Chaney Sr. Phantom of the Opera likeness. It is. It's a good likeness. It's a good sculpt. Is it the best? No. I would say that the Sideshow 8-inch and 12-inch, all the Sideshow Phantoms from the late 90s and the early 2000s, all of those are better than this. And I think the MC Diamond Select Mego style Phantom is definitely, which is more comparable to what this is definitely a better sculpt and better painted. I'm not sure about the PVC Diamond figures, the ones that didn't have cloth costumes. As I remember, they also had a pretty decent Phantom, but I can't remember exactly what that one looked like. So I think as articulated costumed Phantoms go, it's better than the Hasbro Phantom, but it's not as good as the MC Diamond Select Universal Phantom, and it's not as good as any of the Sideshow Phantoms. That being said, it is a good Phantom. I mean, it is good. You can't really say it's bad. It's just a different take. It's not as on the nose with the likeness as some of those previous toys were, where I think they really captured exactly the movie likeness. This one is a little more stylized. It's kind of takes more interpretation, more liberty in interpreting the character rather than doing a dead-on likeness. But it's a cool, just taking it on its own merit, it's a cool sculpt. It has a nice expression. It looks very monstery. It has a nice monster kind of grimacing face. He looks scary. I like that. So if you've never seen the movie, if you're not really, like a Lon Chaney aficionado or anything like that, if you're a kid buying this, you'll probably really enjoy this sculpt because it looks scary. He looks like a monster. I don't think a kid buying this wants to see some kind of a sensitive, tragic looking Phantom. I think he wants to see a monster Phantom, which is what this is. It looks like a monster. So I like that. That's cool. He's got his big bald spot. And with any kind of Phantom merchandise, three-dimensional Phantom merchandise, you always have to decide, do you want him bald, like he is in the movie, or not? And you can go different ways with that. So it's interesting that they went with the more realistic, the more movie-accurate big bald spot on the back of his head. So I like him, and I like that. So this is a proper card art. I mean, look at the back. That's proper. I like that. Look at the front. That's card art. I like that. That's how you do it. I mean, imagine if it just had some silhouette of like a figure holding a mask and then a solid color background. That would be super cheesy. But this has really good movie art. I can't tell if they've retouched it a little bit, but it's not like the Nosferatu artwork where they just, really went heavy with the Photoshop and painted over the stills to make them look kind of cartoony. It still looked okay, but I would have rather they just used the straight photographs as is. So it's a good figure. It's a good Phantom. I'd love to see a whole set of Universal monsters like this Phantom and like the Bela Lugosi Dracula. In my imagination, I can see that Mego Universal Monsters series, and this would be a perfectly wonderful addition to that series. So there it is. All in all, I think it's a great set of toys. I think I like this wave more than the previous one, the what do they call it, the interim wave. I think I like this wave more. It's more serious. They're going for a more serious style in the sculpt, and the costume and everything it's more elaborate. I think, like I was saying, how they bring their A game to the licensed toys, and I don't feel like they do as well with some of the generic toys. I think you can kind of see that here as well. Like the Phantom, it is licensed through the Cheney estate. That's very serious looking, very elaborate. And same thing with the Pennywise. Whereas the Headless Horseman, which is not licensed, I feel like they took some liberties with that. And when they don't have a licensor kind of tying their hands a little bit and giving them some parameters, and when they're left to their own devices, I think they get a little too loosey-goosey with some of this, and the results are not as good as when they have to adhere to the discipline of satisfying a company that's licensing the character. As I've said before, the purpose of this video, my other unboxing videos, is not to tell you whether you should buy it or not. I mean, who cares whether I like it or don't like it? It's up to you. If you like it, buy it. If you don't buy it. What I think doesn't really matter. So what's the point of the unboxing video? There is no point, really. There's no point to this video. But I hope you enjoyed it anyway. When it comes to something like a toy or a collectible item, I really don't know what good a review is as far as informing your opinion on whether or not to buy it. Because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you're talking about a toy for kids, then yeah, then you could review a toy and say, okay, I gave this to my kid and they enjoyed playing with it, or they didn't enjoy playing with it, or they got bored with it, or it came apart after they played with it for one day. It was not very sturdy, or they discovered some piece wasn't safe, there was a safety hazard or something like that. Then I can see a review is very valuable. But if it's something for adult collectors, then you know whether you want to buy it or not. You don't need me to tell you buy this or don't buy it. So something like this is just a way to kind of remind yourself, if you were on the fence, you can watch these kinds of videos and say, hey, yeah, I need to pick those up. Or maybe it reaffirms why you don't want them. You look at the video and say, yeah, those are pretty cheesy. I'm glad I didn't buy those. The best way I can review a modern toy is to say, was I excited about receiving these? Was I excited when these were announced? Was I excited about buying them? Did I find these things exciting? And I guess my feeling was a little lukewarm. I think I was a little bit more excited earlier with the new Megos, with the monster characters, like with that Bela Lugosi. I think by now, maybe it's just like familiarity breeds contempt, and so they've been out for a while now, and it's kind of becoming like ho hum. Oh, you know, another Mego wave, whatever. So I wasn't as excited about them. But now that I have them here, I mean, they're cool. I'm glad I have them, but I'm not, I'm not really energized about it. They're neat. I'm glad somebody is making new monster toys. I'm glad there are monster toys out there on the shelves somewhere, keeping that tradition alive. I'm glad we have a new figure of Phantom of the Opera. That's cool. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad a classic character like Headless Horseman gets an action figure. That's neat. This is the first, certainly the first Mego style Headless Horseman action figure that I'm aware of that's ever been made. So that's kind of important that this thing exists. I don't think anyone's ever done this before. I think the star of the set is the Pennywise. I think this Pennywise is, even though I'd like to say that an original figure was the best, I think the licensed Pennywise, that's really the headline for this series, is how good this Pennywise is. And he has such a cult following, and I don't think there's ever been a licensed Pennywise figure articulated like this. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure NECA has never made a Pennywise. I don't think. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. I'm sure there's figures from the new It movies, but I don't think we've seen Tim Curry Pennywise before in figure form like this, articulated with a costume. And I think he's the best figure. I think Pennywise is the best one. I mean, I'd love to say Headless Horseman's the best, or, something a little off the beaten path, but I think they really did a good job on Pennywise. And I can nitpick a little bit and say that his collar is kind of hanging down a little too far, but that could just be the way it is in the package. If you took him out of the package and straightened his suit up a little bit, maybe that would go away. That's the only thing I can see that's a little iffy, is the low cut of the costume, but that could just be the way he is in this package. Take him out and just pull it up and maybe it's fine. I don't know. But I'd say Pennywise is my favorite of the set. And then I guess the Phantom just is a good Phantom. It's not as good. I'll say it straight out. This Phantom is not as good as the MC Diamond Select Phantom. It's not. But it is a good Phantom. So it's second best of the set. This, I think, Pennywise is the best. Phantom is second best. And I'm glad there is a Phantom like this in 2019. It's just cool that the figure exists. I'd say Mummy would come in third. I really like the bandages. I think the bandages make the figure. The head sculpt is pretty cool. I mean, it's a nice original idea for a head sculpt. They could have gone in a lot of different ways with it. I think the way they decided to go was very good. Can I imagine a different head sculpt that I would like more? Yes, I can imagine other kinds of heads that I would have preferred. But what we got is pretty good. So I like it, and it fits the rest of the figure. It all goes together and it works very well. And the somewhat maligned Headless Horseman that some people didn't like when they saw the prototype, also a very nice figure. Again, I can imagine a better figure, mostly with the costume. I can imagine a different costume with maybe a costume more like the one the Phantom has. That would be like all black and fabric, maybe a long coat and a shirt underneath, or maybe a double-breasted coat, and a longer black cape. But, I guess I can spend $1 million and make my own toy company and make my own Headless Horseman figure, if that's what or I could customize it. I could take this and customize it and take a costume off of some other figure and put it on here. So this is the way they decided to go with this leather style costume, and it looks better than it did as a prototype. The actual figure does look better, and the buttons, people are complaining about the buttons. They didn't look right on the prototype. Buttons look fine in real life. I mean, on the actual production one, buttons are fine. So it's a good figure. I'm glad they made it. I'm glad it exists. I'm more disappointed with this artwork. I don't like the artwork. I mean, look at this artwork for Phantom compared to Headless Horseman. We'll spend a little money on that artwork, for crying out loud. And it, even if this was the way they promoted the movie at the time with all that white, and it might have been, I don't remember, but even if it was, it's a little empty. Yeah, I'm not too crazy about that. I think they needed something there. I like the mummy's artwork. I'm sure this must be stock art of this mummy, but I like the way they had the environment with the sarcophagus behind the mummy, kind of like a Lincoln card, with the actual mummy face next to it. And the back of the card's not bad either, but I would have preferred, because I'm sure that's got to be stock art. I would have preferred an original painting that looked like the figure with the mouth on it. And I'm assuming they found stock art that looked similar to the figure, so they decided to go with that. I like his hands. The mummy's got kind of cool little fingers that are a little different from what I've seen on the other Mego monsters that they put out. They're spread out more, and they're kind of bony, so that's good. That was a problem with their Nosferatu figures, I think, that the hands are too small, or fingers are too small. I mean, Nosferatu should have longer, talon-like fingers. So it's interesting with the mummy that they addressed that, because even his nails are kind of pointy on this mummy. And I haven't seen that on any of the other, like all these other ones. They've all just got normal kind of Mego human hands, and this mummy's got these monster hands. So that's cool. A little while ago I mentioned Universal, and wouldn't it be nice if Mego had a Universal Monsters series? And I want to mention that a little bit before I go. I was talking over YouTube in the comment section to another YouTuber about how Mego seems to have a Universal problem, in that they just can't or don't want to play nice with Universal Studios. Even back in the day, in the 70s, Mego should have got the Universal license and made a series of Universal monsters. And they didn't. Azrac Hemway International did. So then Mego came out with their own generic monsters. Well, why didn't Mego get the Universal license then? And then later, Remco, which was the same company as Azrac Hemway, they're the same company. They came out with Universal Monsters again later in the 70s and early 80s. At that point, I don't know if it would have been viable for Mego to do it or not, but there again, Mego is still around. There again, Mego doesn't have the Universal license, and another company does. And now here we have multiple sets now of monster figures, and there's no Universal licensed characters, even though we've had Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Invisible Man, Mummy, Phantom of the Opera. Am I missing one? And I hear that they've got some kind of a plan to do a kind of a Creature from the Black Lagoon and a Bride of Frankenstein, but I don't know how they're going to handle those. Bride of Frankenstein particularly is very much a Universal Studios character. I don't know what a generic Bride of Frankenstein would look like. I don't know if I want to see that. But surely nobody else has a 14-inch Universal Studios license, and the new Mego did announce a 14-inch Dracula and Frankenstein, and they released photos of it, photos of the Dracula and Frankenstein, and they looked horrible. They were not, as far as I know, they were not Universal licensed, and there was some debate as to whether the Dracula had a Lugosi license or not. If it did, that was a waste of money because it didn't look like Lugosi. The Frankenstein looked a little like their 8-inch Frankenstein, kind of, but it had some weird add-ons, like had like a scar on the head, but it wasn't sculpted on, it was just painted on, and it didn't have any neck bolts, or it was weak. And the Dracula just kind of looked like a generic, vaguely Lugosi-ish Dracula. But it was really disappointing. I thought, why even bother? I know you can't say, oh, we can't get the license, because no one's got a Universal license for 14-inch articulated monsters. 12-inch, yeah, maybe someone's got that, but 14-inch, no one's got that. Come on. So Mego, for whatever reason, they just don't want to. They don't want to put out Universal monsters. I don't know why. I mean, you're telling me that in 50 years you wanted to, but were unable to get the Universal license? In 50 years, you just haven't been able to do it? I saw something on Facebook today about Walgreens selling some new rubber bendy Universal monsters. I went to a Walgreens store, I couldn't find them, but they look kind of cool, so I'd like to get those. I don't remember what company put them out, but it wasn't any big, well-known company. It wasn't Hasbro or anything like that. But they were cool, and there's a creature, an actual creature from the Black Lagoon. So I'm thinking, why is it that a company like that, whoever that company is, they can get the license, and they can put out some cool toys that look like the characters, but Mego can't? Why can't Mego get the Universal Studios license to put out some Universal monsters? Why isn't this Universal licensed? It could be, it might as well be, but it's not. Would that make a difference in the quality of the toy? I don't know, because then they'd have to submit it to Universal and get their approval from the studio license department. That might make it better or worse. Sometimes the Universal licensing department doesn't really know what it's doing, because then they might insist on a green jacket for Frankenstein, but Mego's first 8-inch Frankenstein had a green jacket anyway, and it wasn't Universal licensed. So what difference does that make? They didn't have the Universal license, but they still went with that stupid green jacket. So who cares? So I'm just wondering why it is that Mego can't or won't get a Universal Studios license and do a series of monsters. Why not? It can be done. Other companies have done it. I mean, Ahai did. Ahai wasn't. You're telling me Ahai had more resources and more savvy than Mego in the 70s? I guess they just beat Mego to the punch. I don't know. The Mego beat them with the Planet of the Apes line, and then Ahai tried to rip off Planet of the Apes and do their own line, and Mego sued them, and a whole rivalry between Mego and Ahai in the 70s. Okay, so now here we are in almost the 2020s, and Mego, so what's the excuse now? You say, oh, well, maybe Diamond still has the 8-inch license. I don't know. Okay, well, what if it does? Put out 14-inch. You're telling me Diamond has a 14-inch license? I don't believe that. Because no one was thinking about it. That's why Mego did the 14-inch superhero figures, because that was a size no one was dealing with, so they could get licenses for that size. So why not if you're going to do monsters in that size, which is great, do Universal. Instead, they present this generic 14-inch Dracula and Frankenstein, which looked terrible. And surprise, they pulled those. They pulled the whole 14-inch wave that was supposed to come out at the same time as these. They pulled it, indefinitely delayed the release. Who knows if they're just canceled or if they're going to come out later. Mego said there was some issue with the licensing on one of the figures, but so then they pulled the whole wave. That's weird. It's kind of a mystery as to what really is going on. But if you're going to start putting out monsters in that format, which would be great, I'm all for that. Get a Universal license. Give us Universal Frankenstein with a likeness of Karloff or Glenn Strange. Get a Universal Dracula with a Lugosi license. Or if Lugosi does, or I can understand because of the animosity between Lugosi and Universal, that might be a problem. Okay, give us a Lugosi licensed Dracula, just like the 8-inch one was the license. Give us a Universal licensed Mummy. I'd prefer a Cheney Jr. Karis over a Karloff Imhotep. But either one. Give us 14-inch Universal Mummy, 14-inch Universal Wolfman. You've already dealt with Cheney Entertainment. Why not? Why not? And give us a licensed creature from the Black Lagoon. If you can't, for whatever reason, do it in 8-inch because someone else has got that license, do it in 14-inch. Yeah, I don't get it. If you say it's too expensive, are you operating out of a garage or what? I mean, you're a real toy company. You're selling tens of thousands of toys around the world. This isn't a custom you're not making custom toys. This isn't a basement operation. This is the real deal. And you've got a license for this. You got a license for that. You got licenses for the Lord of the Rings. You got licenses for Rocky. You got licenses for Star Trek, for crying out loud. Got all these Star Trek figures. You got licenses for all the rock and roll musician figures. And you had all those TV licenses for that first wave, Happy Days. What was it? Married with Children. What's the one with Tootie? What is that show? Facts of Life. All those different TV shows. He dealt with all that licensing. That's a lot of licensing. So you must be like masters of licensing by now after dealing with all that. In addition to all the licensing in the 70s, Mego was the licensing king in the 70s. They had licensed everything. If it was a licensed figure from a movie, TV show, or a celebrity, it was Mego. So Mego and licensing go together. Why can't you do licensed Universal monsters? What is the hang-up? We want to see licensed Mego Universal monsters. I know I'm not the only one because I've heard over the years many people say this. I know there's a desire out there to see, at last, a set of proper Mego Universal monsters that look good. And here's what it could look like. This and that Bela Dracula he put out, there you go. This is what I'm talking about. Just imagine this, only with Universal on the back, and you're already more than halfway there. Now just do Frankenstein, and do a Universal Mummy, and do a proper creature, not a Neptunian or whatever, but a proper creature from the Black Lagoon. And show Ahai how it's done, because I know Marty Abrams hates Ahai and the people behind Ahai, Azrac Hamway International. I know Marty Abrams hated those guys. I don't know if they're still alive or not, but he hated them. So spit on their grave. or if they're still alive, spit in their face, metaphorically, and do them one better, and put out a set of Universal monsters that blows them away, blows the highs away. The MC Diamond Select, which I haven't shown here because I am going to do an episode on those at some point. So I will dig, I have all of those. I will dig those up and do an episode on those. But as good as those are, I can imagine much better 8-inch style Universal monsters than what MC put out. They did an outstanding Phantom, but that's really the only really outstanding one of the set. Their Creature was good, their Bride, I mean, they did some good ones, but I can imagine a better one. I can imagine a better set of Universal monsters in that 8-inch format. And Mego is the company that can do it. So why don't they? Mego, get the Universal license, pay up, get that license. If you can't get 8-inch, get 14-inch. Get the license and give us good quality movie likeness, actor likeness, Universal monster figures by Mego, and make them the greatest articulated Universal monster figures ever made. I'm sure Mego can do that. Why don't they? It's only been 50 years. No hurry. So, that's it. Cool set of 4 Mego monsters. I think Pennywise is the standout. The Phantom, also good. And they're all good, no bad ones. I think if there's a weak one that's weaker in comparison, it's the Headless Horseman. But even that is pretty decent. If you collect monster action figures, I don't know why you wouldn't want these in your collection. If you like them, buy them. If you don't, don't. So, that's it. Next time you see me, the background will look a little bit different. And we'll start the proper second season of Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. Until then, he who dies with the most toys is dead.